FM. I'm NND, and you're listening to The Workplace. Welcome to The Workplace, the program about how to get into, get along, and get ahead at work, produced and presented by me, NND. In this episode, leadership coach and financial inclusion international business consultant Jamal Nassar tells us about how startup funding works. Please visit jamalnassar.com. Jamal, welcome to The Workplace. Tell us a bit about yourself.
My name is Jamal Nassar. I'm a leadership coach and an international business consultant in the area of financial inclusion. I've been working with global managers, C-level, and entrepreneurs for the past 20 years. My company, JN Consult, in the past 10 years have developed and delivered leadership programs based on Neuro-Coaching, which is a new methodology that I'm using. I hold a doctorate of philosophy in Islamic finance with focus on financing tech startups, an MBA in strategic management. I'm a certified coach from the International Coaching Federation and a certified NLP and timeline therapy practitioner as well, certified by a number of tech companies, including Amazon business professional, and currently pursuing a postgraduate diploma in education leadership at the University of Portsmouth.
Tell us what you intend to share with us today.
Today, we will talk about funding early stage startups. Early stage, what makes it so? What does early stage startups need to focus on? And the funding itself. What is funding, basically?
Before we delve into funding, let's talk a bit about early stage startup.
So first of all, early stage startup is one of the most thrilling adventures entrepreneurs can embark on. It's high risk. Well, it's a newly formed entity that is early stage of development. So most likely the team or the entrepreneur co-founders would be at the MVP stage, developing minimum viable product, pre-funding usually. When we say early stage means pre-funding, pre-seed money, pre-VC, most likely. So early stage startups are also characterized by high degree of uncertainty and risk, and they're just out there to prove whatever that they have to establish a customer base.
Being early stage doesn't necessarily mean newly started, like 1 month, 3 months, 6 months. You can have an early stage startup that has been like 4 years or 5 years in the making. Is that possible?
Well, an early stage, I would say somewhere around 2 years and pre-seed money, pre-seed. So at this point in time, the startup has not raised funds from external parties, banks, angel investors, etc. They could have invested their own money, savings, and perhaps raise some money from friends and family. That's early stage. If you've raised funding from, gotten a bank loan or VC money, you're not early stage. So what does not make an early stage startup? Well, first of all, startups are known for their inherent innovative nature. So if you're starting a coffee shop, if you're starting a brick and mortar shop, if you're starting a traditional, conventional business, that's not a startup. It doesn't have the innovation component. If you're transforming a traditional business, and that would include a tech component, then you might be considered as a tech startup and then early stage tech startup.
You said if I want to start up a coffee shop, that's not an early stage startup. But if I want to start up a completely robotized coffee shop, would that qualify as an early stage startup?
It certainly would. Certainly would.
So now that we know what an early stage startup is, tell us some of the key considerations for startups, and then maybe you can tell us what entrepreneurs tend to miss or ignore at this stage.
The focus in the beginning should be building a strong team with the needed set of skills and expertise. And later on, that's what investors actually would be looking for to invest in your company. So you got to highlight that. Second, identifying the problem that needs to be solved or the opportunity that needs to be exploited. It's not something you just feel passionate about. You have to solve a problem, and that's what distinguishes between a startup and a great startup. Developing a product or service that meets a specific identified need. Third is validating the product or service through the MVP development process, minimum viable product. if you don't have that or minimum viable product, yeah, that's your prototype. So if you don't have that, it's going to be very difficult for you to move on to the next level, because that's where you validate your market research and get your customer feedback. Then developing a solid business plan, and that's where you'll be, investors and financiers will be looking at that. Your revenue models, where is your money coming from, how it will come, subscription based or otherwise, or one-time fee, and your growth strategy. Understanding the legal and regulatory requirements is one of the other key considerations that many entrepreneurs tend to miss in the midst of their excitement and thrill and the beginning of setting up the business. Now, what entrepreneurs often miss or ignore at this stage is the importance of customer feedback and market research. They feel so good about the product that they launch it, develop it, invest lots of money. And I recall a business venture I was involved in. I was actually headhunted by a tech company, a blockchain company, a few years ago in Vietnam, in Ho Chi Minh. And the purpose was to develop a blockchain product along with a crypto. It was whole of a platform. Now, the thing is, the founder have raised over $162 million in Japan and have hired some of the best talents in the market. Unfortunately, the vision and the mission was not clear. It was just to get into the hype of that blockchain and the crypto mania at that time. My initial analysis was, the business need to be reconsidered. The founders didn't listen to me. I took a seat back and I left. Unfortunately, the company closed shop. They went bankrupt. They failed in 6 months. So another point is you need to have a strong team with a diverse set of skills and be able to associate your business with the potential challenges that your customers are facing. And I would also add to that is developing and working on the brand, building a strong brand and a clear marketing strategy as early as possible. And if you don't do that and you have VC money, it will be very tempting to pump all that money into Facebook campaigns and pay per click, which can just drain your budget. And that money could be invested elsewhere much better.
From the list you created before you told us what entrepreneurs tend to miss or ignore in the early stages, when you were telling us the key considerations, I wasn't really clear what constitutes a minimum viable product. And then the other thing is when you said, I think you said create what's needed or create what's it was number 2 on your list. Can you repeat what it is?
Identify a problem that needs to be solved.
Yeah, identify a problem that needs to be solved. What does that mean? Listen, a problem that needs to be solved is, look, I want to make some money. I'm going to start a business. Problem solved. Do you see what I'm saying? What does it mean when you say a problem that needs to be, identify a problem that needs to be solved?
Right. So when we talk about a problem that needs to be solved, we're talking about a pain point, a customer pain point, and you identify that ideally by going through it. Example, a few years ago, before we've had vegan burgers, the meatless meat burgers, that was a need for it. Somebody experienced that need, say, oh, okay, I'm a vegan and I still love burgers. I want to get that sensation from eating a burger. I want to have the taste, but I don't want the meat. That is a need. So you yourself, sometimes that need resembles a certain target market. You solve that problem for yourself, you solve it for the target market. And the same thing applies to different products, different services. Just look for a pain. When you're getting a service from a company or buying a product, and then you ask yourself, I wish that product could also include that. I wish that service would be tailored to this group. If you ask yourself these questions, then you may be into something.
But can I say, then the answer that you come up with to that must be something there is mass appeal for, because it's interesting that you chose that vegan burger market as an example, because that is a pet peeve of mine. I actually, if I were going to solve that problem, I would come up with a model of a psychiatrist for those people. Because if you don't want to eat meat, just don't eat meat or anything looking like meat. Do you see what I'm saying? But then there wouldn't be a market for that. Do you get my point?
Yeah.
All right. Any comment?
Then we can talk about two things. We talk about blue ocean strategy and we talk about building a minimum viable product, an MVP. Now, let's talk about MVP first. MVP is a prototype process that helps an early stage entrepreneur who doesn't know much about marketing, and there could be a tech person, could be anybody, right? It could be a doctor want to develop a certain app. So the MVP process is your methodology that you follow to develop a prototype. That prototype could be something on paper. It could be a way to test product A or product B through the same process. So you develop it and then you can showcase it to your investors. You can develop that MVP and then put it on a crowdfunding platform. When we talk about funding later on, but MVP process is one of the ways that you want to consider to validate your service. Red Ocean and Blue Ocean strategy, which is developed by Kim Chan and his partner from Harvard Business School, is Red Ocean is all about competing in traditional markets based on price and features. Blue Ocean is all about creating a new industry. Think of Tesla, think of Netflix, think of iPhone. Create your own markets. Be a market leader, a market creator.
So it's like innovating, or is it more like disruption?
Well, it is innovation and disruption, actually, both.
What I understand is, so Red Ocean is just sort of improving on what's already there as a concept. Like we already had TV, do bigger, brighter, more HD, more visual effects TV. But Blue Ocean is a different way to watch TV on the whole. Like, so now it's on demand. Now is that sort of like the idea?
More or less, yes. Red Ocean, think of how banks compete and how telecom competes. That is what Red Ocean is. Very limited features that banks can distinguish themselves from the competitors. They're not very much different. And then look at telecom, you get just the packages, different packages. You don't get nothing that is very disruptive about one company from the other. One is slightly faster, one is slightly more expensive or less expensive. Whereas you get Netflix, at the time that it was launched, there was only one Netflix. Nobody knew what Netflix is. Nobody knew how it worked. Right? They were market creators, not market leaders.
The considerations you have set out, are they generic and apply regardless of the field of business, or is all that you've been telling us so far applicable only or mainly to the tech space because that's the space you are in?
I would say if you're a company that needs to raise funds, you want to consider the points that I've mentioned, regardless, because investors, VCs, and financiers, they would want a business plan. They want to see the MVP. They will ask you about that. They want to have a clear strategy, etc., etc. A startup in the tech industry may also want to consider intellectual property protection, IP, and product development timelines. While startups in the food industry may need to consider, food safety regulations and supply chain management. So there are industry linked or related considerations and tech and innovation related. But you would always want to protect your IPs as early as possible.
Are there any considerations around particular demographics? Like, is there a difference or anything to consider around gender or anything with regard to how startup funding works?
Research tells us and data that women in general and women of color, especially, and individuals from underrepresented minorities, they would be more likely to face additional hurdles in getting access to finance, building their network in certain industries, including the tech industry. Similarly, individuals from lower socioeconomic backgrounds may have limited access to resources. I've worked with entrepreneurs, they've had the most brilliant ideas, and I've loved the idea. They've developed a prototype with an expert in the field. And then I've asked this entrepreneur, he comes from an underprivileged background. So he tried to talk to the banks, pitch to them to get a loan. He was not able to do so. Then I interviewed the banks and I said, would you invest in tech startups in strong MVPs, strong prototypes? They said, certainly would. Regardless of the background of the person or the entrepreneur, they said, oh, certainly. Then I bridged the two. Can you guess what happened?
Well, first of all, how did you bridge the two? What do you mean you bridged the two?
I got the entrepreneur to pass his deck, right, his pitch deck, and I've talked to the head of the financing unit for tech startups and SMEs. This is not in the UK, by the way, outside in a different country. And then I introduced both of them to each other, which was a brilliant process. And I was really happy initially, where there was a promise, there was some potential for this young entrepreneurs. But unfortunately, most banks will be banks, and certain considerations will not be presented. So these socioeconomic backgrounds will be a hurdle for lots of people. And then one thing is worth mentioning here is that it depends where you are in the world. So for example, I've done research with over 120 tech startups in Malaysia, Southeast Asia. My research indicates that women, when women are presented as part of the team or leading a team in the tech startup space, they are more likely to be funded, which was quite interesting.
This is in Malaysia.
This is in Malaysia. My research is in Malaysia. Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so I'm looking forward to what you're going to say next and how that compares with the Anglosphere. The statistics are not that way for the Anglosphere, for sure.
Yeah.
Britain, America, yes.
Now, if you are a woman of color or a person with some kind of disability, you would want to leverage on a few key points. First of all, you follow the process and the considerations other entrepreneurs could miss, the ones that we've mentioned earlier. Second, build a team around you. You don't want to be singled out. You want to build a team that is diverse, ethnically and demographically. Gender diverse, you want to have different set of expertise and different people who each one would have a value add in their own. That way, you would be painting a better picture, an attractive picture of a strong team that is capable and diverse. Diversity and inclusion is your weapon. Other things you want to consider is seeking out your network, seeking out mentorship especially, and guidance from other entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs, people that you have access to within your network, or somebody you could be introduced to. Mentorship, if you get that early on, it can broaden your horizon, it can help you overcome obstacles and face challenges in a much more realistic and positive way.
What makes a difference between whoever are the people that get funding regardless?
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay. That's a good one. Yes. I got it. Yeah.
And why is it if Joe Public turns up with nonsense, he or she will be funded, but Joe underprivileged turns up with a panacea and will not be funded? What makes it's just prejudice? It's what? And what closes the gap?
So some of these obstacles that I've talked about is, number one is the biggest obstacle of them all is getting funded. And that would be due to a number of reasons. It could be your business plan is not good enough. You don't have a team behind you. It could be the way you look, your ethnicity. It could be that you don't have a brand and you don't have a team. Even if you have a great idea, without a team, that's already risky. Now, how do we come some of these obstacles? They're very different ones. So there's no one size fits all. If you're from an ethnic minority, you can't change that, can you? You can go to the bank and say, hey, I've changed, but what you can do again is, first of all, build a diverse team. That's what we've mentioned. Second is to increase your chances of funding. You want to create strong partnerships as early as possible. Strong partnerships with suppliers, with strategic partners, etc. One of the other things to resolve these challenges is to invest some of your own money. Find a way to invest a small capital that will get you the bigger capital. So the research shows that investors are more likely to invest in your startup if they see that you've put your own money, regardless of how much. So you're all in it.
What about the role of selling in all of this?
The role of selling is often absent in the again in the tech mania space. When in the beginning it's all exciting and thrilling. So even when you raise money, you're going after that perfect product. You're developing, and investing. And lots of entrepreneurs, they're not thinking selling. And when that happens, selling is the lifeblood of any business. It's about convincing people to exchange something of value for something else of value, i.e. their money for your product or service. Without sales, there is no revenue. So you want to start generating money and cash flow as early as possible. Look for to develop something that is sellable, not something that is perfect. And then you can develop it and perfect it along the way.
On a slight tangent, I'll say this takes us back to the example we gave at the beginning with my potential solution for vegan burgers as
Mm,
opposed to what is now actually on the market. I could see
exactly,
how,
exactly,
I could
exactly.
see
Thank
how,
you.
and, but I personally think my idea is the actual one that makes more sense. Yeah,
Yes,
you need a
yes.
psychiatrist to help you if you don't want to eat meat, but you want to eat things looking like meat. But for
Mm,
some reason, in the wider population, they are going the other way. You know, what's popular, what has a mass appeal
mm,
is what's on the market now.
yep,
So you have to find what sells, what appeals to people.
exactly, exactly. That's exactly what you're saying. Yes. So moving on, startups don't have the brand recognition or reputation. That's why lots of startups, once they've raised money, they will invest a great portion of that investment into marketing and ad spend, which could be a huge mistake for lots of companies. What you're doing is basically you're investing in something that does not generate tangible immediate incomes for lots of businesses. Yes, you will get more clicks, you will get lots of visits, you will get your likes and whatnot, but the conversion rates are very, very low. Startups don't have the brand recognition and reputation that's an established business enjoys. As a result, startup they will need to work harder and gain trust and attention of potential customers and minimize their marketing budgets. I mean, look at what Tesla. What Tesla's doing. How much does Tesla spend on marketing? Zero. They spend zero on ad spend, marketing campaigns. Zero. It's all organic. They invest all the money in the product. They're perfecting their product. They're accelerating their growth. They're investing in new manufacturing facilities. They're extending their product lines. They're solving problems. Today, Tesla is one of the safest vehicles out there. And the accident rate example for an average driver, it is an accident every 500,000 miles. Today, for Tesla, it is an accident every 2.3 million miles. You see where that goes? So invest your money wisely. Invest it in a product that serves your target market. The impact of failure to achieve this is that startups will struggle to gain traction and generate revenue. If startup cannot sell their product or services effectively, they will struggle to grow and may ultimately fail. And this explains why there is a high percentage of failure among startups. And that's why it's important for startup to prioritize sales and invest in building strong sales teams and strategy.
Assuming an early stage startup gets funded, then what's next?
Some people have different ideas when we talk about funding. So funding starts, let's say, from the early stages, right? It starts with friends and family. It starts with your own money actually, and then you go to friends and family. Then after that, you may approach angel investors. You may take a bank loan. That's how you fund your business. Then when you have that maturity, you've developed that minimum viable product, you've gained some traction, you sold the early version of your product, then you can take these results. It's like your certificate. You've just graduated from the tech startup space and you go to your VCs, you build a pitch deck, and then you can raise money. And then there is crowdfunding. That's also under funding space for tech startups, especially early stage. If you've developed that product and you feel good about it, it is sellable, you can go with the crowd. Now, what's good with crowdfunding versus VC? Crowdfunding, ordinary people are investing in your product and service, and that doesn't put lots of pressure in your startup versus VC. VC, they're quite aggressive. So once you raise money from VC, you'll be under scrutiny to grow and grow and grow and grow faster and grow bigger and scale and scale and scale, which is great for business. But then again, you have entrepreneurs who want to take their time. They want to work on their mission. That's why they develop that product or service. They lose that control to the VC. So what does that mean? It means securing funding means that startup has successfully convinced investors and provided them with the financial resources needed to grow their business. This usually involves negotiations, around the equity of the funding, equity ownership, and expected returns of or on investment. Once the funding is secured, startups can begin to execute their plans and growth under the supervision of their investors. Now, what funding does not guarantee is business success. While you have financial resources to spend money, to hire people, to launch campaigns, it does not guarantee success at all. And this is one of the things that could kill startups is cash flow. If you're not investing this money to generate present and future cash flows, you are already in the red zone, in danger. You want to always consider having positive cash flows. You want to be compliant with the regulations. You want to always ensure that you're scaling your business. And remember, if you're a small startup, you're an early stage, you don't have to scale and go big and compete. You just make sure you scale and you grow consistently and gradually. And fourth, I would say delivering on the promises to your customers and to your investors. Startups should focus on executing the business plan, growing customer base, and building their team as they go. Other considerations they want to have is a clear exit strategy. How long do you want to be in the business? What is a potential exit for you? Do you want to sell out your equity through a buyout or a merger or acquisition? And once you have a clear idea of what you want to do with a clear exit strategy, you want to always ensure that you have time to reflect. Entrepreneurs are always under great stress. They're on that hamster wheel 24/7. And it's just immense pressure at times. So it's very important to take time for deep reflection and personal growth, which means you're always aligning your values, always aligning your mission with what's going on in the startup. You don't lose track. And continue to develop curiosity. Sometimes early stage success creates that sense of satisfaction, which tends to make people feel a bit more confident, and then that would jeopardize their curiosity. They stop asking questions. So you want to always ask questions. Hire people who ask questions, powerful questions, daring questions. One of the other things I would always say that, after securing funding, where do we go from there? We raised that, fund round. You'd probably want to raise more funds to expand and scale. But amidst all this excitement, again, you want to just stop the clock for a minute and ask yourself, what am I doing to take care of my own well-being? You are the captain of the ship. It is your ship. If something happens to you, somebody else will take over. And that may not go as you like. Things will change and the mission may change. So ensure that you maintain your overall well-being and always develop what I say is a learning attitude and hunger for knowledge. That what sustains learning and growth.
Tell us anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up.
For more information about Neuro-Coaching or about programs for startups and entrepreneurs, head to jamalnassar.com. That's JamalNassar.com. And allow me to invite you to mark your calendar for Friday, May 19th, 11:30 a.m. UK time, for a scheduled complimentary online talk titled Unleashing Your Personal Leadership Potential, a Transformational Journey. It's all about actionable tips and tools for unlocking your personal leadership potential and achieving your goals. Leadership is one of the things that entrepreneurs need to learn as well. Spread the word to anyone who may be interested in attending, and I look forward to seeing you there.
Jamal Nassar, thanks so much for being with us here on The Workplace to discuss how startup funding works.
Thank you.
And that's it for this episode of The Workplace, the program about how to get into, get along, and get ahead at work, produced and presented by me, NND. I was speaking with leadership coach and financial inclusion international business consultant Jamal Nassar about how startup funding works. Please visit jamalnassar.com. And to keep up with this and all the other work and workplace related conversations that take place here on The Workplace, please use hashtag WorkplaceNND. My thanks as always to all those who have made this program possible. This program was first broadcast on Community Arts radio station Resonance 104.4 FM, which is a charity. Please support us at resonancefm.com/donate. And thank you so much for listening. As always, it's been a pleasure being in your company. Till next time, keep finding new and better ways to keep working.